Today we are going to talk about the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 6K G2 camera. Despite its size, the camera has a fantastic ergonomic design. Even here with the battery pack on the bottom, it's still easy to grab, lift, and you're able to press buttons you need, like the record button, extremely easily. Speaking of batteries, this camera takes the Sony NP-F570 style batteries, which is a lot better than the Canon batteries with less charge that Blackmagic used to use in their older cameras. You also have an option to purchase an electronic viewfinder for this camera, which is helpful if you're using this for run and gun shooting, and the install is very easy. And the image is great at 3.68 million dots. There's a piece that covers the top of the camera if you choose not to purchase the EVF. On the hand grip, there are the usual buttons you may see in other cameras: ISO, white balance, a record button for example, and also a dedicated button for taking photos, which by the way is a pretty decent 21 megapixels. Across the top, you have the on-off switch and 3 function buttons that let you assign quick access to menu items. On the side, you have access to the storage options such as SD cards and CFast cards, which I personally don't use. And on the other side, you have an option to plug in a mic, some headphones to monitor the sound, an HDMI out for a monitor if you need it instead of using the EVF for example. And at the bottom, you have an option for power, 2 mini XLR ports for different types of mics, and a USB port. On the back, you have a 1080p 5-inch touchscreen, which you will definitely take advantage of for making a majority of your adjustments. For example, here I'm reviewing my footage and I can play it back easily. My Panasonic S5 has similar options, but let me tell you that a 5-inch screen on this camera is much easier to use as a touchscreen. The main screen that I have pulled up here lets me see which storage I have selected. So once I press on that on-screen setting, it would not only tell me how much storage I have left on that SD card in this case, but also more helpfully how much time that translates to based on the resolution and the codec that I'm using. On the back, there's another helpful button that lets you punch into the footage 1:1 and get critical focus, which is very helpful when using the old manual film camera lenses such as the one that I have installed on the camera here. On top of the camera, you have a mounting point, potentially for a monitor if you choose to face the camera towards yourself, for example. On the bottom, you have 2 more mounting points and also a part that easily screws off to attach to the battery pack, which holds 2 additional batteries that I mentioned before. In this case, I assigned one of the function buttons to apply a LUT so that I could record flat footage but still be able to view what it would look like once I bring it back into Resolve. Most of the settings that you need to change are easily accessible right from the main screen. Here I can change the frame rate. I can also change the shutter angle. You can also change the ISO, which can be changed using the slider across the bottom or the arrows on the right side, which will jump to preset values. Then of course we have white balance with helpful icons, a slider just like we had with the ISO, preset values with arrows, and then a tint control all the way on the right. But now let's actually dive right into the menus. Here we can see the codecs in the camera, which include Blackmagic RAW, which I've done a video about, link in the description, and also ProRes. For the RAW, you have either a compression ratio or you can use constant quality, and there's different levels for that. ProRes also, of course, has different levels of compression that you can choose from. All, in my opinion, are very good, even the most compressed. Across the bottom, you have the different options of resolution that this camera records. In the monitor menu, you can set each display with its own dedicated settings. You have the LCD screen, whatever is connected to the HDMI, and the viewfinder if you have it installed. All the settings in the menu are very self-explanatory, which is helpful, and includes things like focus peaking and the ability to change things such as focus peaking color. The audio menu is also very helpful with its simplicity. You can see and change the source, check the levels, and adjust the levels. In the setup menu, you can confirm the date and time is set correctly or change that if you need to. Choose whether or not you want to use shutter speed or shutter angle, as I was showing you before. And in the next window is where you change what the function buttons do across the top of the camera, as I showed you before. Here where I have F2 set as a display LUT. I won't go through all the settings here, but there are more screens under the setup menu where you can change things such as LCD brightness, possibly to influence the battery life, including an option to dim the screen after a certain amount of time. The next menu is a preset menu where you can save your settings to a card, so that if you've adjusted some settings and want to move them either to a new 6K G2 camera, or you need to reset your camera for whatever reason, you don't need to set everything back up. And then of course, the last menu is the included LUTs within the camera. Here I'm just going to show you a couple clips. I recorded them in ProRes 422. And the thing that I love about this type of footage that you can get from the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema cameras, especially in the ProRes and the Blackmagic RAW formats, is the dynamic range that you have. So as long as you're not extremely underexposing or overexposing, you can capture a lot of your scene where the whites aren't blown out and extremely white, and you can still see details in the darkest parts of your footage.